I have to admit that I am proud of being Spanish, not because our politicians or economics, which obviously are not the best, but because Spain is one of the most advanced countries regarding LGBT rights legislation. Living in Spain, and especially in the Canary Islands, I have to say that sometimes I forget that I do live in a world where there are not only countries which do not recognize same-sex marriage, but also countries in which people of the same gender cannot go by their hands walking down the street without hearing language abuse against them. Countries in which LGBT people is at risk of death. And I feel as if I was not the only one who forgets about this sometimes. I think we all do. As if last year, when news broke that the US Supreme Court had finally extended same-sex marriage to the whole US territory, people thought the fight for LGBT rights was over. However, last week, I was reminded that the fight for our rights has only just begun. This happened when I read an article about two girls from Morocco who were caught kissing and consequently were sent to jail. The girls, who are my age, live in Morocco. Morocco is the nearest country from where I live, so this news really hit me pretty hard. If you add to this horrible news that there are still 70 countries in the world where homosexuality is illegal, that in 7 of them the LGBT community faces up to life imprisonment, and that in 8 of them it faces death penalty, you realize that the fight for human rights, for LGBT rights, is far from being over. And the worst part of it all is not the prohibitive legislation of these countries, but the social rejection LGBT people face all around the world, even in countries in which homosexuality has been legal for years. Taking this into account, there is no wonder why the suicide attempt is 4 times greater for LGBT youth. So, what solutions can we, young people, who are going to be the future leaders of society, bring to solve this problem and finally achieve equality? First, we have to go to the roots of the problem. We have to bring down the taboo that surrounds homosexuality, bisexuality, or transsexuality. I mean, these are natural aspects and common aspects of lives. So, why don't we include it in the education of our kids? How come there are no LGBT characters in cartoons? Why does society avoid talking about these issues in front of our children? We have to teach our children that there is nothing wrong with boys loving boys or girls loving girls. It is something natural. If kids grew up knowing this, we would avoid the tough process every LGBT teen endures when they start to develop feelings for someone of the same gender. Moreover, there will be no need for them to come out of the closet, because their sexuality would have never been taken for granted as heterosexual, nor homosexual. Secondly, we cannot settle. We have to demand for basic rights for the LGBT community to our institutions. These rights, to name just a few, include same-sex marriage, LGBT parenting and adoption, anti-discrimination laws, anti-bullying legislation, and access to sex reassignment surgery. And for this to happen, we only need to start a conversation. We only need to push the first domino token in order for all of them to fall down. A study from the CNN revealed that the percentage of people supporting same-sex marriage in the US increased by 300% from 2005 to 2015, a period of time in which this topic was being debated in the US. This proves that if the conversation starts, solutions start to arise. And nowadays, all that it takes to start a conversation is just a single tweet, just a single statement from someone like you, like me. Just a simple conversation with your family, with your friends. And I strongly believe that talking about our problems would lead to a solution to them, because humanity has done that before. It is true that we are still fighting racism, in the US for example, but once the conversation started, there was no possible way it could be stopped. So once the conversation starts about LGBT rights in your territory, it is just a matter of time for LGBT rights to be accomplished. And honestly, they need to be accomplished, because don't you think that equality is the basis for democracy?